If you're ready for freedom from the grind, then passive income from real estate investing is the best way to get you there. If you don't know where to start or what to do next, then the Rent Roll Radio Show is the best place to get you there. Join us while we discuss the best practices, strategies, and mindset you'll need and give you actionable content to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we are joined by a special guest that I'm really excited to have on. I've been begging him to come on my show for a couple years now, but he's too busy selling all of my flip houses to break away and get on camera. So, Leo Desselle from Pennant Real Estate, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for our listeners' benefit, Leo is the owner of Pennant Real Estate. He was the number one real estate agent in Baton Rouge last year?
Yeah, pretty much.
We've known each other for years. We were in a business networking group before I ever was even involved in real estate. He was the first real estate agent I'd ever worked with, and now he is a major integral part of my flipping business. So from the front end to where he gives me the ARVs and tells me whether or not I should buy the deal, to the back end where he stages it, sells it, makes it pretty, he definitely goes a step above the rest and goes early and often to do inspections and really coordinate a lot. So really appreciate everything you do, Leo, and thank you so much for joining us.
Look, I love having you as a client. It's fun. I get those Sunday morning calls sometimes. Hey, man, I need an ARV on this right away. I was like, all right. So I'm drinking my coffee, hopping on the computer and getting it done. And it's fun for me. I mean, when you're in it as long as I've been, which is going on 15 years now, it's something that doesn't take me very long to do, and enjoy helping because I know it's going to be future business. So
awesome. Tell us a little bit about your story, your kind of what you did before real estate, how you got into real estate, and then outside of just being the best agent in town, you also do some investing. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. I'm from New Orleans and graduated from Archbishop Shaw down there on the West Bank, and got recruited by Coach Saban to go and play for the LSU Tigers. So that was 2002. So I was on the national championship team in 2003 with Coach Saban. And then Coach Miles took over, played for him for another 3 years for the Tigers. And then right after that, it's kind of like most college kids are like, what am I going to do now? So I had a couple of years towards business, a couple of years towards kinesiology. And I'm just sitting there in the weight room, just trying to what's next? I got 2 night classes, so I get my degree. And the head strength coach there, Coach Moffitt, he said, man, you work out a lot. Go teach people how to work out. I'm like, it's a good idea. So I got a certification, had a couple of years towards kines, found a local gym that took me on and started running my personal training business out of there. And at pretty much the same exact time, my dad was buying investment properties in Baton Rouge, and we lived in one of his rentals during college, and that kind of got me somewhat interested. And he told me, so they would go get your real estate license, partner up with my realtor. She can show you the ropes, and y'all can, decide if you want to continue that as a career path. So I said, yeah, why not? So started personal training people, got my real estate license at the exact same time, and did both of those for quite a long time, about, I'd say 10 to 11 years. And I quickly grew my personal training business. And I ended up, I say within a few months, training about 50 to 60 clients a week. And at the same time, I was doing boot camps in the afternoon. And at this time, the market was not great. This was when pretty much the 2007 market crash happened. And I really honestly didn't even know what was going on, to tell you the truth. I joined a big brokerage. I go there as often as I could. They were showing me a little bit, but the person that I attached with early on, which was my dad's realtor, showed me way more than, what I would say the big brokerage did. And just having those hands-on training from her and being able to call her early on to get a lot of the questions that I had answered helped tremendously. So I'm kind of like Superman in the bathroom. I'm sitting there answering phones in the bathroom while my clients waiting on me, going back and forth, changing clothes to go show houses, and just hustle. Pretty much rose with the market, from 2007 when everything crashed, it was just a slow climb from there. Remember, President Obama implemented the first-time homebuyer tax credit, and that was huge because the age that I was at, most of my friends were first-time home buyers. So my third year in real estate, I saw 20 homes, and I'm like, holy cow, I just made $100,000. At the same time doing the real estate business, I said, this is incredible. So I paid off a little bit of debt that I had, and it just fueled me to do more, do better, and I just kept building my database out of that gym, and it just slowly grew from there. I never looked back.
Awesome. When did you become a broker and start your own brokerage and break away from the bigger one?
So 7 years ago, I started with the bigger one my very first year, quickly realized I didn't like it. It was too corporate for me. Joined a smaller brokerage called Red Stick Realty, and she was great. That broker showed me a ton, learned a lot from her. And I was with her for about 6-7 years, and she was pushing it for me to become the broker whenever she would retire, almost even put me in the will to take over the company. But I declined because I told her, I said, look, there's another company I want to join, learn the ropes from them, see how they do business, because ultimately my end goal was to have my own brokerage. I started to learn that I truly had the heart of a teacher in respects to personal training and wanting to teach realtors how to do what I did. And it's a passion of mine to help others and to see others succeed. And in doing that, the gratification I get is incredible. I opened up Pennant Real Estate 7 years ago. We currently have about 40 realtors now underneath me. Each one that I take on is someone that I either knew, did a deal with, or someone referred. I'm not out there recruiting heavily. So it got to a point, I'd say about 3 or 4 years into where realtors started calling me instead of me having to call them. So I wanted to become that magnet instead of calling, hey, come to Pennant. Come on, let's get coffee. Come to Pennant. I wanted them to call me because I wanted what we had to be something special. So it's working. I mean, it's a formal interview process, and even turn people down if I don't think they're going to be a good fit. Unlike a lot of others, it's too easy to get licensed. I think that's a problem because they are not, there's so many of us now, especially after this huge rush of, a great market that we've had in the last couple of years. Everybody wants to be a realtor. Everybody knows a realtor. So it's just too easy to get licensed, and it's too easy to maintain. And I just think that better training needs to happen early on. It needs to be a tougher thing to become because, man, last I looked, there was about close to 2 million realtors in the U.S. So Florida having the most, and then California, and then Texas. So it's, I think with the cool off of the market that we're seeing right now, and it has to cool because it was crazy red hot these last couple of years. So I think this is a welcoming, cooling factor that we're having. I think with this, we'll see some of these realtors drop off, the ones that aren't doing much, basically. So because it's a tough gig. It's 100% commission. If you don't kill and bring home food, you don't eat. So it's it's tough. And most people don't realize that within the first year, there's an 87% quit rate for realtors, mostly on Facebook or social media, how great others are doing. And they think they're making a ton of money, but, it's not like that. For some it is, I tell a lot of agents when they're thinking about getting in that, 5% sell 95% of the real estate. So how can you get to that top 5%? So it's tough. One third of us sell nothing. Right. The other third sell less than $1 million. And then the final third pretty much sell the rest. So I try to have these hard conversations with people that are thinking about getting in the business. Like, are you sure you want to do this? So it's, but the ones that do, it's a really great thing to be a part of in a way you can make a great income.
Yeah, that story brings a couple of thoughts to mind. So one is how similar, and just to your credit and to all of the other hardcore realtors out there credit, I never became a realtor because I was terrified of those statistics. I was terrified of that commission only. That's a scary place to live. I did it with insurance out of college, and it's like if you don't hunt, you don't eat. There's no such thing as a steady paycheck coming in, And that is unnerving. So kudos to everybody who's done that. And then with the insurance business, it was the same kind of stats, right? Like 90% of the people fail out like almost immediately. And people still come up to me like, should I be a realtor or should I be an insurance agent? And I'm like, well, you should be if you're going to be good at it. You shouldn't be if you're not going to be good at it.
Right.
You take a lot of people, like if you were going to suck at this corporate job or if you were going to suck at this, you're probably going to suck at that too. It's the same like discipline and driving forces, you know what I mean, that make you successful across, any different industry. And another thing to your credit is being I've always loved hiring athletes because there's just this intrinsic motivation, this understanding about that, like your performance is really a reflection of the training you do when nobody's looking, and going to practice and hitting those sprints in the morning and all of that work that's not in front of everybody. I think that's lost a lot of times in today's workplace, but athletes truly understand that like your performance at the game is really just a reflection of all the hours you put in when no one was looking.
That's exactly right. 100% agree.
Tell us a little bit about your investing history.
So, as I said before, my dad was not a huge investor. He lived in New Orleans, but he loved buying properties near the campus, near LSU. And he got in before Hurricane Katrina. So that was huge because if you're from this area, when Katrina hit New Orleans, pretty much half of New Orleans moved up to Baton Rouge. So the market went crazy in Baton Rouge and everybody was doubling their prices on their homes. So he had a lot of residential single family homes around the Baton Rouge area. And he sold probably 2/3 of his inventory and doubled his money within a week. So it was quite crazy when that happened. I know it's just natural disasters, events like that. Very unfortunate, but of course, there's always, light at the end of that tunnel for others. So that kind of got me interested in what he did and what he was doing. And so I picked his brain a lot about it. I did believe that buying near campus is a good thing, especially for rentals, because they stay rented and the values always go up. LSU, I don't think it's going away for, ever. So as soon as I graduated, it's a funny story. Around 2007, the market pretty much was starting to tank. Well, I went to Chase Bank. I said, hey, I want to buy my first rental property. And they go, okay, let me check your credit score. And I said, look, I don't have one. I'm fresh out of college. I haven't worked anywhere. I'm a personal trainer, running my own business out of there, not a W-2 employee, just 1099. And they go, okay, well, not a problem. What do you want to buy? And showing them, and I said, it's $100,000 rental property, just north of campus. And he goes, okay. He said, just come to the table with 5,000. I got to bring this 5% down. And I said, okay. I said, well, look, I don't have $5,000. And I said, I got a credit card. They go, okay, yeah, see if you can get a Visa credit card check, bring that to closing. It'll be a little bit more with closing costs. So I'll tell you the final numbers. It ended up being like $8,000 I had to bring to the table. On a Visa credit card check is how I bought this property. And that included the down payment and closing costs. So that was old school, no doc loan that allowed that kind. And all they needed was my college degree. That's how they approved me. It was incredible. So I said, no, years later, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, no wonder the market crashed. Look what they were doing. They were giving these loans away to anybody with a heartbeat. And it just blew my mind. So that's how I bought my first rental property. And $100,000 property, my monthly note was around $600-700. Interest rate was like 6 or 7% at that time, which was good at the time. And monthly income on it, rental, I think I was making $1,000. So I was averaging $300 to $400 on profit for that property, which I thought was fine and kind of the number I stuck to. And after that, they tightened up big time on how to get a mortgage. Basically, all the rules changed because of what they were doing before. So a couple of years go by, I was making great income at the gym and selling houses. And being a 1099 self-employed person, you need 2 good years of income, according to the banks. So after 2 years of having a solid income, they approved me for a loan. I bought 2 more. I had to put the 20% down as a typical investment loan. And so I ended up with 3 right away. But it was, I found myself buying these older homes and I was chasing people down, trying to collect the rent for. And I was not handy at the time. Fresh out of college, all I knew how to do was play football, work out, and sell houses. So, these repairs were coming up and it was eating up the income when AC went down. I mean, that's $3,000-$4,000. It was taken away of profit for, quite a few months. And I just, I was like, I got to switch. I'm not that type of investor of buying older properties that needed a lot of repairs consistently. And I was, chasing down waitresses at Buffalo Wild Wings that owed rent. Like, where's the rent? And so I said, I don't have time for that. Basically, I got a goal. I want this to be a very side thing. And I know it's a long-term investment, but so I switched my strategy around, and I was reading a ton of books, a lot of Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey, and I was kind of riding the middle line between both theories on that type of investment. Dave Ramsey's a big cash is king guy. Robert Kiyosaki is the complete opposite. So I found myself to be conservative in a lot of aspects. I just kind of rode the middle between the two, and I switched. The DSLB, these big spec builders around Baton Rouge started building properties not far from campus, and average price for those are around $220,000. And so at the time, I had 5 $100,000 properties. I sold them all pretty much within a few months time frame. I did a 1031 and rolled them all into these brand new homes that I wouldn't have to worry about repairs for a while. That was making double the rent, averaging $2,000 in rent. And the quality of the tenants, much better. Everyone pays on time, early if not, and it's no repairs with the New Home Warranty Act in Louisiana. It warranties the home for up to 5 years. So there were so many pluses to this model that attracted me that I just went all in, sold them all 1031, bought 3 of the larger homes, the $200,000 brand new homes. And I really haven't looked back from that model that I like to do. So now I have 5 of those, 2 more under contract, and the values have skyrocketed. So I bought 5 of those around 225, and now they're all pushing $325 within 4 or 5 years.
And those $100,000 houses you had on West Chimes are still worth $100,000.
Yes. So I bought them for that. And you're right. I sold them for exactly that. And I probably broke even after a lot of headaches, but better than a loss, I like to say. And I was able to use that money that I started to put the 20% down. It kind of was like a savings for me, a savings checking account, I should say, where, it was saving, rolled it all over tax-free into these larger ones. And so now they're each profiting on top of my note, average $1,000 a piece. So I got 5 of them making $1,000 each on top of everything. Plus the equity is consistently rising with these homes. So my end game for these is once they get to be about 10 years old is when I want to start selling them, because I believe that's when things start to break down on these homes, from the AC, the more expensive mechanical items. And especially before the roofs get too old and you got to change them, especially with all the new insurance stuff that's going on and how strict they're becoming. So I want to do another 1031 and roll them into, I would say, $300,000 purchases, or $350, I would say, rentals, because everything has gone up. The 200 then is now 300 now. But I want to get the brand new ones again, and that are able to charge $2,800 at rent.
Nice. So at what price point do you think it becomes like flip-flopped for making sense, right? Like you can't just keep exchanging up, right? A $500,000 house is not going to cash flow. I mean, or maybe it could. We've had this discussion plenty of times, and I love your strategy. I wasn't making, when you started putting 20% down on $200,000 and $300,000 houses, I didn't have the money to do it. I mean, I did what I did because, I didn't have anything to start with. So that's why I started in the lower income areas. But I love that strategy. But at some point, you're going to top out, right? One of my concerns is, if you can pay $3,000 a month in rent, like, why aren't you buying a house? And at some point, you know what I mean? Like nobody's paying $5,000 a month in rent. So like, what is your price to rent ratio that you feel comfortable with? And is it evolving over time?
So with everything that happened with COVID, everything has gone up. Inflation, rents, cost to buy a home. So the 2 new ones that I currently have under contract are about $315, both of them. But the rent I'm getting now on an older home that's pretty much the same, not older, I would say 4 years old. I'm up to $2,800 now in rent that 3 college girls are paying. So they're dividing that rent up by 3. The parents are like, okay, that's perfectly fine. So because they're comparing to what they would pay for a college dorm, which is almost $1,000 for a 1-bedroom right now around LSU. And that's if it's furnished or not. So I'm keeping a close eye on what LSU is doing and comparing it to what they can get living in a single family detached home, not having to share showers and all that like a dorm room would. So parents are very high standards for their children right now. And they really like these brand new, granite countertop, 12-foot ceiling homes that are detached because it's more of a safety thing. They have a garage they can pull into, park, go inside. And COVID too, like that was something that pushed them really hard into the detached single family homes because they didn't want their kids getting sick and being around hundreds of other people in the dorm. So there's a lot of pluses that happen. Plus, if they have a pet, you got a yard compared to these apartment complexes that might have a little pet area that they can go play in. They have a yard. So they're paying premiums for the things that I just mentioned in regard to these single family detached homes. So these builders can't build them fast enough. I mean, there's a solid demand for these homes. Everything around campus is old, and they're apartment complexes. So they're willing to drive a few miles away from campus to where these builders are building these homes now. I guess to answer your question, that 315 range depends on the interest rate too. So with where they are now, around 5%. And whenever you buy a rental, it's going to be more. It's usually tack on a whole nother percent on top of that. So around 6% for an investment property. If I'm making $700-800 plus, I'm happy on these properties because I know they're going to appreciate. Our inventory is way too low for single family detached homes around campus and in general, but especially around campus. So I really feel that getting into these neighborhoods early on, because I know what they do, they increase the prices as they sell out in the different phases. So you get an immediate bump in equity within the first, I would say, year, because usually it takes about a year to sell at phase 1 and then start phase 2. And what they do is just keep bumping up the prices as they see the demand. And I know a lot that's coming around this area. Baton Rouge is still very underdeveloped. So I have a strong feeling that the equity in these homes are going to continue to rise a lot. So I think that as long as you're making 700 plus on top of the mortgage, I think that's a huge benefit. And one other thing I didn't mention, a big benefit about going new, is the insurance on these homes. Whenever you quote out insurance on an older home with an older roof, that electrical's the original, you may have asbestos siding, it goes through the roof. And especially with the past couple hurricanes and years we've had, everything has doubled. And so the insurance on a brand new home is incredible. And one other thing, the builders lift up the land that they're not lifted up, but they add more dirt to the land that they're about to build a neighborhood on. And basically, they'll buy cheap dirt in a flood zone and bring in a ton of dirt, lift it up, and they call loam it. So you loam it out of the flood zone now. So flood insurance is not required. And so that's a huge plus. So none of my homes have ever flooded. And flooding is a big problem we deal with around town. So there's so many benefits. Cheaper insurance, flood insurance isn't required, even though I still highly recommend and have them on all my property. But it's a lot cheaper, maybe $600 for the year to get flood insurance if you're in Zone X around here. So I don't know. I mean, everything just made sense to me in doing this. It gives me more time to focus on what I really love to do, which is serve clients and hire good agents and train them to become great at what they do. So it's a little lazier form, slower form, but overall, I think it works fantastic.
I love it. I love it. I want to rewind a minute because I meant to ask this question earlier, and this is not a real estate investing question. It's more of a sales trainer teacher question because I've been in sales management for a long time, and one of the kind of the concepts that I have a hard time grasping is like, when you look at top performing sales folks like you and myself, a lot of that is wrapped around like charisma or something that can't really be bottled and reproduced. Do you find you have like trouble sometimes coaching people or training people that are they're just not as charismatic as you are, and you're like, and how do you overcome that as a sales training?
So they put me through, before I started volunteering and became a board of director at our board of realtors here in Baton Rouge. They put me through, it was 4 different weekends, all weekend long, of training. And it's training how to become a better leader. And the first weekend, this great teacher, Amy Fennell, she organized everything and hired someone who was a professional teaching emergenetics. Have you heard of that?
Mm.
It's a personality assessment. It's kind of like the DISC profile, but it's on a much higher level. And we spent a whole weekend on this, basically learning about ourselves and then learning about others and the major personality traits that are out there. So they say 1% have a certain, it's a little bit of the 4 quadrants. Only 1% of people can interact with the 4 main personality types out there and do it well. So if you're having a conversation with let's say, an engineer, you shift gears and you talk like an engineer. You speak their language. If you have a conversation with someone who is, just real bubbly, the light of the party that, talks, everybody knows everybody, you kind of switch gears and you know how to speak their language. So it's being able to talk to the introvert, the extrovert, just speak all their languages, because people are comfortable with people like them. That's just how it is. So if you put an engineer and someone who is the light of the party in the same room, or, they don't have to be an engineer, but more the introvert, they're just not going to click. So 1% of people test to be able to speak all 4 languages quite well. And, there was a big group of about 20 of us, and I was the one out of the 20 who was in that 1%. Based on all the questions, it was like 100 different questions that you take this test for emergenetics. So it was interesting. I wasn't surprised, because of when I got out into the workforce and I was a personal trainer, I was training so many different kinds of people, and I was able to click with them very well. There was another trainer at the gym who was way up here with his knowledge in personal training, and I was brand new at it, didn't know much, but he wasn't training anybody. Nobody wanted to work with him because he couldn't speak their language and mesh with them and click with them and, get on that level of really what they want and what their goals and needs are. So I learned in the first couple of years of training people that, I'm pretty good at this, and I think I could be good at sales as well in real estate, and, sit down with someone and really figure out what they want and need and get them to meet their goal. So, I love doing it too. So it made me feel really good just helping everybody get to their goals that they want. So that weekend was pretty special, and I'm glad I did it, because it taught me a lot about myself and how the other personality traits are. And it's funny, just some people can't do it, and it's something I think you're born with. It's really hard to learn. But everybody's meant to do different things too. There's engineers meant to build bridges. The person who's really good with computer stuff is meant to do that. Someone who's meant to be out there helping people, talking, coaching, mentoring, they're meant to do that. So, there's no right or wrong. There's nothing better about any one of those. It's just who you are, and you got to figure out who you are and what you want to do and how you can help people. And I think that's the goal.
Absolutely. Awesome. So switching gears again, let's talk about how you, from a realtor's perspective, how you like or perceive or interacting with investors differently than, a typical retail buyer. So historically, I don't think realtors really like working with investors a whole lot, right? We want to put in 1,000 lowball offers. And so you're doing paperwork all day and like 99% of them aren't getting accepted.
Right.
But, you put up with that crap for me for a long time until it finally started to pay off pretty big with all the houses we're selling. So shine a little light on your experience of working with investor versus, and then kind of walk through like what you do and how we work together and kind of what your day-to-day looks like.
So when we get on the phone and talk about a deal, I speak your language. So I know what you want. I know what you want to hear. I know what you need to hear to make the deal work. And it's more of a commercial type deal, I would say. So it's all about the numbers. and you have a goal, and I'm going to help you hit that goal. So you need that 30% ARV. And so until we find that, I don't even bring it to you. But if I'm dealing with a brand new first-time home buyer, I'm going to have to take their hand and walk them through the entire process. But we have the systems in place to help walk them through that process. I think it relates a lot to the emergenetics example of speaking the person's language and getting them to their goal as quickly as possible and, as best as possible. The needs you have, you got to meet and hit and get them. And it's more of a business transaction compared to a personal, help them feelings, make them comfortable type situation. So a lot of realtors, when they decide,
I will say you often have to keep me from jumping off a bridge when closings get pushed.
What do you say about the Matthew McConaughey kicks in? All right. So it's that, and also if you're doing too much, because I know how you are. There's always a deal. We got to get it. We can't lose on this deal. And it's like, well, let's slow down. Let's look at the big picture here. Let's see where we are with everything that we have, and then make the best educated decision on there, and not just so focused on losing a deal, because there's always going to be a deal out there. And I'll tell buyers that too when we're shopping around. Like, look, the market has slowed down some, but it's still fantastic. So if if they feel like they're
when you say the market has slowed down, I mean, is it? I know it's softened, but has it really slowed down from like a realtor transaction perspective? Because now there's more inventory. So like before, it was almost to a spot where there was so little inventory that there wasn't a lot of transactions, right? Because there wasn't any houses for the buyers to buy. It
was insane. It really was. If you can get a listing that was the goal that on that side of the rainbow. Like if you can get a listing, that's where it was at. So I was very happy that we formed the relationship that we have, because we were bringing listings to market and we were selling them very fast. It was very difficult to get anybody to sell because, a couple of years ago, they locked in at a 2.25 interest rate. So why would we sell? Plus, where are we going to go? So I kept hearing that over and over and over from people. And you can't blame them. They're locked in at 2.25 for 30 years and they have nowhere to go. So why would I sell? So for a long time, we were only getting, like this death, divorces, like that was really the only reason people were selling. We were getting investors who were flipping homes and coming to market. And it was just nuts. I mean, I had a spreadsheet. When I would list a property, my spreadsheet was ready to go. And that spreadsheet we would input all the different offers that were coming in. And then that way we could send them to our clients and like, look, this is what we got. We got 15 offers on the table. Here's the difference between all. This might net you the most, but this one doesn't have an FHA loan. So I wouldn't do that. So it's just more risk. So it's kind of like you get to pick and choose based on everything. And so it's softened and it needed to soften. So I say slow just because, compared to what it was, it's absolutely insane. But it's still fantastic. I mean, we're still in a very much a seller's market where, I may not get you 10 offers on day one, but I'll get you one within 10 days type thing, which is still incredible. Because before, it was taking average 30 plus days on market to sell a home overall. Mm-hmm. So it's still an excellent time to sell. The interest rates are pretty much what they were in 2019. And people just forget, they have amnesia. I don't know what's going on, but it's that sticker shock going from 2.25 to 5. And 5 is pretty much what it was a few years ago before COVID. So we're kind of back to normal with that. But it's just that sticker shock, and people need to, if they need to move, it's hard for them to let go of that 2.25 rate.
Yeah. So just from my perspective, what it's like to work with it, because a lot of people ask me like, well, why aren't you a real estate? And I made a reel about this the other day. Why I'm not a real estate agent. And I encourage, if you want to be it's a great career if you want to go sell real estate, but I always say, like, don't go get a real estate license just because you want to save some money on selling your house, because it's like managing properties or doing the work yourself. It's just going to bog you down. Like you want to be a CEO, and in like you do a ton of stuff. Like I could, if I wouldn't get my real estate license and sold my own houses, I mean, probably I wouldn't do as good of a job, right? Because that's not like my main function. So I would do the job like poorer than you. It would take me longer to sell them. I would get irritated all the time. And I mean, there's a ton of cost savings there, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know the math of how much you make, but I mean, it's got to be in the high, pretty significant. I mean, it's very much a person's, normal salary, which you would make off of selling all these houses in a year. And so it's like, well, why don't you go get it yourself? But like the amount of time you save me, when I get a house most of the houses I buy, you've sent me a handful of houses that I bought, but most of the houses I buy, like you don't even get paid on that transaction. Right? I buy them from a wholesaler, but I still call you, 20 times a week for give me the ARV of this. I used to get them off of Zillow and some PropStream and some of the other apps, but like those become less and less reliable. And I think some of them have like really stopped providing real-time data. But like when I send that address to you, I know you're looking at true comps, you're weeding out the outliers, and you're giving me like a comprehensive market analysis that is a reliable expectation of what we can sell it for. And so that is a tremendous amount of time savings on the research perspective, right? And then once we get the house, you go walk the house with my contractor before we like when we gut it or before we even gut it, and say, hey, we're going to, you plan, design, hey, remove this wall. Hey, we want the kitchen to look like this. We want to paint everything this color. You know what I mean? You go through that design phase with me. You pick out all of the fixtures. And then once my guys have done majority of the work, you do usually at least one or two walkthroughs where you have blue tape and, hey, you missed a spot of paint here. Hey, this fascia is a little rotted, needs to be, to the point where I don't even have to go to the properties anymore because you're there walking them, labeling them, inspecting them. You coordinate the pre-sale inspection.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We've had a couple sales fall out of contract because we didn't catch things beforehand. And so now, you have a full inspection report drawn up. You coordinate that. You coordinate the lawn maintenance. You coordinate the photographer. You have the house staged. You list it. That is a tremendous amount of work and time savings for the investor. Whereas I'm very, very confident that if I spent all my time doing all that stuff I just listed, I would have half as much time to find new deals.
Agreed.
As an investor, you should really spend all of your time finding deals and finding money and pretty much outsource everything else. So, and that has been my focus, is to how can I remove everything from my plate except for sourcing money and sourcing deals. And then you've been one of the biggest members of that team to make, what are we doing? 20 houses this year?
Yeah.
I think we've already sold 6.
That's the goal.
We've already sold 6 and we have 11 more in the works. So, it's very realistic. We'll at least get, 3 more. So
3 are pending and we're working on a bunch more right now. Just trying to get through some of the permitting and things that come up throughout the process. Huh?
Yeah.
But man, it's crucial to stay in your lane. And I think that's for any industry. I'm not trying to be the closing attorney or the insurance person. I have good people that on my power team is what I call it, that whenever I have questions, I know who to call or who to send the business to. If there's a certain type of buyer, I know who to send them to as far as the handful of lenders that I like to use. So staying in your lane is crucial. There's a really good book that I'm almost done with called Who, Not How. So it's finding basically who
to
hire. It's Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan. I don't know why.
Dan Sullivan. So Who, Not How. And it's incredible. It's eye-opening. He gives a ton of good examples throughout the book about stories that really stress the importance of finding the right people to do what you can probably do, but shouldn't be doing. I'm not going to hang Christmas lights on my roof in the middle of, right when it's starting to get cold, and I'm just not doing it. So I'm going to hire somebody to do that. I don't want to fall off the roof and bust my head because my family needs me and a lot of other people are relying on me.
This comes up with, my dad is old school, right? And in old school world, a man cuts his own lawn you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he just looks at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? You lazy millennial. You don't want to cut your own lawn. I'm like, dude, look at how much I make an hour, and then look at how much an hour I can pay somebody to do it. It makes zero sense for me to cut my own lawn.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. It's true. And I mean, it takes to be excellent at what you do. It takes a long time. And I mean, once I tell a new realtor, I said, look, once you get about 5 notches on your belt, 5 sales, you kind of get it. But until you get 1,000 deals sold, you're going to really understand it. The deal can deviate in so many houses.
Do you know how many houses you've sold?
I knew that question was coming when I said it. I don't. It's a bunch.
Dude, I would have it written on my wall. I would update it every time I sold a house.
I need to do it. So I'm very good at yearly tracking and to hit my goal. But looking back at the total big picture of what I've done, I just don't have it yet. I'll look and text you. And a lot of deals weren't even put on MLS. Some of these new construction ones aren't even listed. But it's quite a lot. I mean, I've been averaging 60 home sales a year. So a little over 1 a week for, I don't know, 15. So at least I would say 10 years, the past 10 years. Yeah. So it's been good. I mean, ever since, like I said, Obama in my 3rd year implemented that first-time homebuyer tax credit to try to stimulate the housing market. I sold 20, and from there I never looked back because I knew I was good at it. I loved to do it, and it was something that, okay, how can I make this better? And so I hired an admin to help out to take care of all the paperwork, and now I have an admin and a marketer, and now I have 30, 40 other realtors that are part of the Pinnacle real estate team that, they're all self-employed and selling on their own, but I'm the one coaching, helping, mentoring, taking the calls to help them through the deal. But, and I teach them to, get that power team, get that incredible inspector, get that great title company that you're going to use, get a handful of lenders that can help every buyer depending on the type of loan and situation they're in. And that way, when they come aboard, you know exactly who to send them to that's on your team to take care of their role. And then as soon as they're done and they're pre-approved, then, okay, let's go find a house. We go find a house. Okay, let's get the inspector. Then I highly recommend to get that home inspected. Okay, let's call this insurance person. They're excellent. Okay, are you good with closing with this title company? Because I know they're going to do a great job on the research on the title and not keep us there for 3 hours and telling us stories. Let's get this property sold and be efficient about the process. And okay, if you need help with what colors to pick, my wife is excellent at that. So she can help you design the home after if you need it. So she's the one that helps us with a lot of your homes when it comes to colors and the current trends, because things are changing all the time.
Yeah, so, I was joking the other day that your wife is quicker to spend my money than my wife is. She'll come in, knock out this wall. Let's put some gold fixtures right here. And I'm like,
I know. She's good at finding the deals and telling you where to go. Because I think, remember you were looking for mirrors in the bathroom, and she's like Hobby Lobby, and sure enough, they had a stack of them, and you looked everywhere. Yeah. And I mean, I swear they know her by name in some of these stores now. She's good. She's just, some people have that eye and some don't. She's not and she's frugal about it too. She'll shop and find the deals and know exactly where to go. But I mean, she's able to spit out colors that we need quickly. So I'll send her the initial pictures sometimes of the homes that you're looking at. And you're okay, what color? And I was like, not the best of colors. So I'll send it to her and she'll text me back. So I'm kind of the middleman between y'all half the time when it comes to the design. But we started bringing her recently to one of the properties to get a feel. So now that our kids, we have 3 young children, our youngest just turned 5. And so she is, about to go to school more often. So she'll have more time, I think, to assist on a lot of these projects and actually be there in person instead of FaceTime. But, again, she's part of my team. And a lot of times, like when we sold your personal homes off of Brightside, she was the one that would come in before and look at it and say, okay, we need to bring in, she'll make a checklist of items for staging to bring in. And so we have a storage room that she'll send me or we'll send somebody to go get and stage these homes. And, that kind of stuff really does help to have her on our team to get the job done. So, that's something I usually send in as part of my listing process. Like, okay, I'm looking for the functional stuff that I see that the home inspector is going to notice. I'll go in and make y'all a list of that. Then, okay, she's going to make the house pretty. She's going to come in next and give y'all a checklist and do everything she says. And I mean, sure enough, it's been working like clockwork with the process we've created.
Awesome. Well, I know you're running short on time, so I'm going to hop to our radio round real quick. I just got 3 quick questions for you. First one is, what's your favorite book?
So I really am leaning heavily on Who, Not How right now. And so I think that someone just recommended it to me. I got another little business project going, and they mentioned it to me, and I've been hooked on it. And it's really opened up my eyes to a lot of things where we try to do too much and not stay in our lane. And it's helping me focus on what I'm really good at and finding the right people to do the other things.
Absolutely. So what's your favorite quote?
So it's funny. So we've had these mugs made, these coffee mugs, and it's nice and big and fit. And it's right here. So you did not wake up to be mediocre.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And then what's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
Workout. So, I got to get it in 5 days a week. It's just, if not, I feel like I'm missing something. It gives me the energy, helps keep my mind clear and focused. And, it's what I've been doing since probably 6th grade is exercise and CrossFit.
It's such a big part of mental health. So
yes.
I've since, my dad started taking us before school when I was in the 6th grade, and every morning for, 30 years, that has been what you do. And when you go, when you miss a handful of days, you find yourself in a kind of a jacked up headspace. And then you kind of connect the dots of like, oh, I haven't been to the gym in 3 days. That's what's wrong with me.
Yeah, for sure. It's crucial. I mean, being a personal trainer and a gym rat for as long as I was, it is. And I mean, we had to do it during football for LSU, and prior to that in high school, my dad making me in the garage in 6th grade. So it's just a habit. It's a really good habit that'll, I think it's the fountain of youth. So martial arts, I would say, is pretty close to up there. And I mean, that's great workout too, but recently got my black belt in judo, and that's something I've been doing since high school. So really love martial arts as well.
I heard an interesting thing from very unlikely source the other day. I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was listening to it like at double speed on the plane. And what he said was he started doing martial arts. I think it was jujitsu or something, because, he likes to exercise to reset, for all the same reasons we like to exercise. He said, I used to run. He said, but what I found was when you run, you have a lot of time to think. And the whole idea is to stop thinking. He said, so I started doing mixed martial arts because it requires your full attention. And like, it doesn't allow you to think or dwell on whatever crap. And it's like, it's truly like, clearing your mind.
It makes sense. Yeah. I think I knew your brother before you in jiu-jitsu. Him and we used to roll around in the back a lot. And so he was a hoss. So we had some good battles, him and I. But it's true. I like that. I never thought about that. So
for anybody in the local community, how can they get in touch with you, use you as a realtor, find you online?
Yeah, check out our website first. You can learn a lot more about us and the company. It's pennantrealestate.com. That's PENNANT, realestate.com. My cell phone too, so I'm always available, 225-324-2600. And Leo Desselle with Pennant Real Estate. So it's great talking with y'all.
Awesome. Thanks, Leo. Really appreciate everything you're doing. And I'm sure I'll talk to you 9 more times today.
I appreciate you. All right, buddy.
This episode was brought to you by Crestworth Capital. If you're a busy professional and ready to make passive income from real estate investing, then go to crestworthcapital.com, where you'll be able to download a free copy of our ebook to help you get started today. Until next week, happy investing.